when you're not here watching or listening live to the Salem News Channel or on your favorite radio station, there's a great menu of podcasts at the Salem Podcast Network. One of them happens to be the editor-in-chief at Breitbart News. It's called The Alex Marlow Show. You can also see it on the Salem News Channel, but it's a great podcast every day. And Alex, not only his work on the Salem News Channel and on the podcast at Breitbart News, he's also author of great books like the most recent, Breaking the Law, which was just released this month. Alex Marlow, welcome back to the show, sir. Good morning.
Chris, it's always nice to see you, and such a gracious introduction. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, no, we love your work around here, man, and people love your work. It's why you have the job you do at Breitbart News. In fact, I was just thinking about you, and we talked with Governor Scott Walker yesterday, who I improperly introduced as you, as a matter of fact. But I was actually glad to have him from Young America's Foundation. You spoke to them coincidentally, and this is a question you weren't expecting coming out of nowhere, but it's really intriguing to me, and I'm thinking a lot about it lately. Young men, young people. The census data says younger people are not moving out of their parents' houses. They're not getting full-time work oftentimes. They're not having families. They're not getting married. They're not having kids. That's not really the case with the people that are involved with YAF, for instance. I know. But what do you think culturally generally is going on there? If in fact, I can't measure that, but if in fact it's true that that's a growing issue in our country culturally, what is that about?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems here. I think, first of all, I think it starts with the houses are just too expensive, and it does make it feel like it's such an uphill climb to achieve the American dream. You can get there, but I know, Chris, in my family, we have 4 jobs between me and my wife, so it's not everyone's kind of got that inclination. It felt like it used to be in America, at least the America we were taught about, that 50, 60, 70 years ago, that you could just have a job and then you could get a house with that job. It sounds like an insane idea these days, which is not great. It used to feel like it was more attainable to get to the American dream, but we created this culture with so much borrowing, with so much cash that is in the culture, that it's fairly affordable to have those day-to-day pleasures like a nice TV or a smartphone, but it really feels unattainable to be able to have something like a house. And I think that's really demoralizing too. Also, I think our social skills are getting arrested largely by phones and by addiction to screens. And we're not also fostering a culture where hard work is the expectation in some ways. I think a lot of people are imbued with that from their families, from their communities. But I think on a national level, we don't talk in those terms. And then I also think that we almost across the board, aside from some religious communities, encourage people to basically waste their 20s, like traveling around, playing the field, getting to know yourself, which to me is not working. I think people should be really thinking about what's the plan to be able to support a family, to be an attractive mate for a spouse, trying to identify that spouse and then start that relationship and that family. We don't do almost nothing to encourage any of that stuff culturally. So this is a huge phenomenon. And I'm kind of glad you brought it up because it's important to me. And it was one of the reasons why I always try to speak to young people when I can, mostly to tell them to get focused. You know, I met my wife when I was 17. It is the best decision that I ever made in my life, was basically to take myself off the battlefield, so to speak. I found a wonderful woman and we built a family together. We built a life together. It's been very satisfying. And it freed me from a lot of distractions that a lot of other men have. And not to say that's not for them, but I'm not speaking for every individual on earth, but I know that was sort of the ace up my sleeve. And we don't talk about encouraging people to do that at all. No one ever suggests that, you can date for marriage when you're pretty young and it might work out great for you. It did for me.
My concern is, and I'm not going to name names, I think you probably pick up what I'm laying down here. There's a whole culture of young men. My sons are 20 and 19. And I notice, not so much them, but their friends. Yes, we've read that maybe they're trending more conservative. We've read that some of them are trending to be more faith-based in their seeking. I hope that's true. I think that's great. Mm-hmm. But I also think that there are people that are maybe on our side or in our tent that are feeding that demographic because it feels very hopeless or maybe an uphill climb for all the reasons you just mentioned. they're speaking into that with some, in my view, kind of toxic and perhaps conspiratorial stuff that makes them feel something like everything they thought they knew is a lie. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't challenge conventional wisdom. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be a cynic. I'm not saying you should blindly trust government or anything like that. Please don't misunderstand. But you know what I'm saying? I'm afraid that young men who feel a little lost or directionless or ambitiousless or whatever are being played to by people kind of selling a business model. Does that make sense? I'm trying to stay vague without naming names.
Yeah. The naming name just gets you into a lot of headaches. Yeah, but there's a huge ecosystem on the online that's largely associated with the right that encourages men to really embrace toxic masculinity in a lot of ways. And it is... look, the type of guys who are wired that way, a lot of those guys are warriors, and they think of themselves as using a brotherhood of men to try to change history. I'm not saying that there aren't a few people where it's genuine, but for the most part, it's not genuine. For the most part, they're speaking to lost individuals who are at home clicking on their screens and scrolling and are not really living a life where they're surrounded by women and they're in terrific shape and they have, go on great adventures and smoke great cigars. Like most of the time, that's not who they're talking to. They're talking to people who are lost, and we'll be better off trying to find a community, church-based community, a meaningful line of work, and to try to steel themselves physically so that they're ready to share the burdens of a family and to create a family with another individual. But that's not what's being encouraged. What's encouraged is a caricature of manliness from a different era. And for some reason, people don't get the joke that you're supposed to treat that. It's almost like a sitcom on TV or something. It's supposed to be, I think they're kind of like movie characters, these online personalities, and people look at them as self-help gurus. It's not really self-help. It's really just online entertainment, and with very few real life practical implications that are being applied. I'm not saying that you couldn't take some of them into your life, but the people who are being spoken to are not the ones who would do any of these things. Those people are all lost people who really should be encouraged to do other things.
I am so glad you said that. I hope that's a book you write, because I'm not smart enough to write it, but you are. You've got another book, by the way, behind you. I want to talk about breaking the law. But that, to me, culturally, I think that's one of the big stories going on right now. And you've succinctly said what I've been struggling to put to words. I just see it coming down the pike that there are a lot of, given what the census has discovered, a lot of sort of hopeless, directionless, lost young men who think they don't have much of a future. Maybe they're mad about it. Maybe they feel victimized, maybe justifiably so. And there's a business model on our side speaking into that, feeding them full of a lot of toxicity, in my view.
And a lot of it, though, Chris, just to add an air of optimism to it, some of it is a reasonable reaction to what society has done to women over the last 75 years, where women, they've taught women in American society lately to lose all of their charm by becoming, neurotic in the modern age and trying to embrace male characteristics. And this has been encouraged on a wide scale level. It has not made women more attractive, more charming, more desirable, and it's really been off-putting. And in a lot of ways, the way we've said the university system and the way most of us make our living, not necessarily with our hands, but at desks and with screens, that women are often better suited to do some of that stuff. And so it's really kind of swapped gender roles in a really unhealthy way. And some of it is a reaction to that feminism. And if you look at it through those lenses, it's less scary and less offensive to me, some of these online cultures. And I think that overall, if we can let's be in great shape, let's exhibit the fire of youth. Let's try to be let's try to actually be masculine and not be a beta like a Tim Walz type. Okay, take that. That's great. But then also you want to be good people in your community, and you got to be realistic about your expectations that it is a great life if you can get yourself one house and a nice car. You don't need a supercar. You have just like a nice car, and then you have a nice spouse. You can share holidays and children and your best days, your worst days, your vacation days. That's great. It's a great life. And that was all we were recommending to people, it felt like, for decades. And now, no, really, you should be heading over to Eastern Europe to ride some supercar on a racetrack. And if you're not doing that, you're a loser. It's like, what are you talking about? It's ridiculous. Yeah. Who are you? Go away.
And by the way, this whole Sydney Sweeney thing is the perfect example what you're talking about. That's a woman who is attractive, and she knows she's attractive, and the jeans company knows she's attractive, and that's how you sell things. Attractive people sell things. That always used to be normal, and now a beautiful woman selling things is eugenics and Nazism. I mean, it's lunatic the way primarily left-wing women have behaved. Yeah,
I brought this up when I spoke on behalf of my doppelganger Scott Walker at the Young America's Foundation a couple of days ago. I was making this point is Andrew Breitbart, who hired me into the conservative movement 17 years ago. He would have lived for this moment where he criticized the right for being sexless and joyless and scolds, and now it's the left who is like, hey, look at that chick with a great body. She's wearing jeans. Let's call her a Nazi. That's them. And then we get to be like, we'll take her. That sounds great. Thank you. By all means.
Hey, Alex, before we wrap, I didn't mean to go here today, but I knew you'd have plenty to say, so I apologize. Could I quickly get your pitch for breaking the law for people that haven't read it yet and should go get it?
Yeah. By the way, I had no idea how much time we had, Chris. So this is an epic bait and switch on your part. So we ended up having fun.
I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to short shrift you.
No. I've been talking about breaking the law all day for the last several days. This is a product of a year of investigative research. This is my warning to the country that if we don't stay in a war footing and try to defeat the legal superstructure that was built to take out President Trump, to rig the 2024 election, I make a very clear case. 2024 election was an attempted rigging up to the Joe Biden White House, which coordinated those 6 major cases against Trump. It's a wonder if you're able to keep the 6 cases straight. You will after you read the book. Trump had to either win them or somehow survive them at a PR level while he was running for president. I think it's the biggest scandal in modern American history. There's been no accountability whatsoever. And it's continuing. It's ongoing. It's the same superstructure that built those cases are the ones who are stifling his agenda with these temporary restraining orders, et cetera. And it's going to go on, and they will use the same infrastructure to try to beat us again next time. So that's why we got to get engaged. We got to get focused. And we can't go on our back foot. We can't take days off right now. We got to be 24/7. It's a big investigative report. I think you'll like to read it if you get a chance.
Could I ask you just quickly, 10 seconds, Pam Bondi, do you have faith in her? Are we going to see indictments?
I'm not being negative right now, but we deserve the perp walks and the handcuffs. And if we don't get them, I think that is going to be something that base we're talking about, they expect that. They want to see it. They need to see it.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.